Hello and welcome to the Auto Trader pregame show. Players only as we take a look at Russell Westbrook making his entrance as he gets ready to host one of the very best, Dame Lillard and the Trailblazers starting to play some good basketball. We should have a good one here. Greg Anthony sitting in for my man C. Webb, who was working hard last night, along with the Hall of Famers, Isaiah Thomas and Kevin McHale. So we're going to have a lot of fun. But let's get it out on location first to Dennis Scott and get caught up to what's going on in Oklahoma City as we get ready for this battle. DZ?
Well, guys, first of all, it's a little chilly here in OKC. I don't know what the weather is back in
Atlanta.
It's
cold here, too.
It's cold there, too?
Cold, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So, that being said, hopefully the cold weather stays outside the arena because OKC Thunder is playing better defense. That slipped a little bit. Paul George playing at an MVP level. And you talked about Dame Lillard and C.J. McCollum. Now we have to talk about Nurkic. He's playing better basketball. You're just talking to some of the guys as they're warming up. Nurkic is tired of people saying who's the third guy for Portland. So it should be a good ball game tonight.
It really should. And, you know, you look at this Thunder team, all the talk coming in was how great they'd been defensively, but that's not been the case here of late for this group, DZ. What's the thought process with how they're playing on that side of the ball?
Well, they understand that teams have come into their building and shot the ball with confidence. And the first team that comes to mind the other night when the Los Angeles Lakers came here and played lights-out basketball with Kyle Kuzma shooting the three and getting anywhere on the floor like he wanted to. So they realize teams are going to come in and give them their best shot. They need to regroup. Guys off the bench understand when they come in, they got to lock down and play good team defense. But no panic. I say it again, no panic because a guy named Paul George is playing really, really good.
You know, 3D, they going up against a great backcourt tonight when you talk about Lillard and McCollum. What strategy do you think they will implement tonight defensively to try to slow those two guys down?
Well, try to keep them off the three-point line, and when they split the double team, Isaiah, you know this, you're one of the best to ever do it. When they split that double team, make sure those big guys step up in the lane like Kevin McHale used to do, and not so much block the shot, but deter the shot and try to get some of those shooting percentages to come down because we know you're not going to stop them all night long. We want them to work for every shot they get tonight.
You know, Dennis, what I want you to do is go tell Adams that Nurkic wants to have a big game tonight because I want to see what Adams does to him. I look at OKC, and I think Adams just really, when he's playing well, he's defensive rebounding, he's offensive rebounding, but he's really clogging the paint and just helping recover. Talk to me a little bit about Adams and Adams' ability to really help that OKC defense.
Well, I think Paul George has done an excellent job, guys, believe it or not, throwing the ball down low to your point, K-Mac, to Steven Adams. Just let him touch it. He doesn't always try to shoot the basketball because he's a great passer out of the mid-post. So sometimes let the big guy eat a little bit. He sets better screens. He defends more for you. And now you can get out and run and get easy baskets.
So 3D, is it raining out there? Is it snowing? Because we just saw a shot of Adams walking in.
Yeah. He looked like the abominable.
It was raining.
Yes, was that guy?
It was raining earlier. It stopped raining, but man, I cannot lie. I didn't bring my big coat. I brought my southern coat. I'm chilly.
Man, you can get up under his coat.
Hold on. That's the kind of guy when you're walking down the street, you see him coming, you go to the other side of the street.
You go take off running. You go.
Who is that guy?
All right, DZ, we're going to check back in with you a little bit later. Let's talk a little bit more, guys, about this Thunder team because you know, when the season started, they probably had as many question marks as anybody after how the season ended a season ago. But defensively, they were a juggernaut for quite a while. But then now it seems like they've hit a stretch where defense has not been their calling card. Do you see them returning to that? And also, do you guys see them as a legit contender in that Western Conference?
You know, I was one of the guys early in preseason. I wasn't sure if OKC in thinking that the West would be as tough as it is. With Russell missing games, with Westbrook missing games early in the season, I didn't know if they would fall so far behind that they wouldn't be able to make up the games. However, you know, you got to give Billy Donovan a lot of credit because he and Paul George and that group, they did a great job of holding down the fort. And when Russ came back, they just took off. So, you know, I like where they are defensively. And I think there's so much room to grow and improve for the OKC Thunder.
Yeah, I tell you what, when they're playing good defense, they're switching to deny the passes. When they're not playing good defense, they're laying back off it. And, we get a switch down here. You know how hard it is when guys can fly on switches. You're uptight, you're denying, you're getting a hand in. They get deflections, they get steals when they're doing that. What I've seen lately a little bit is they've been a little bit more passive on the defensive end, allowing those passes to flow freely on the perimeter. I just think when they're up pressuring, they're a much better team. So we'll see tonight if they get back to pressure, how many deflections, how many steals. And the reason that I'm believing in this team, you asked, where can they go in the playoffs? When you can score off your defense, that gives you such a big bounce, especially in the playoffs when scoring becomes at a premium. When you can get 4 or 5 of those deflections for runouts and get yourself 12, 14, 15 points off those deflections and steals, that's huge. And so I'm believing in this team. Favorite thing about the OKC lately is that Russell Westbrook is not pressing his offense. He's not having those 6 for 30 games. He was 6 for 12 last night.
Yeah.
Damn near had a triple-double, had 10 rebounds, 9 assists. And when you can control the game by taking 12 shots, you are a basketball player. You're not a numbers correct.
Yeah. And that used to always be the judge of if your point guard is really controlling the game by, how many shot attempts he has to take or doesn't take. And the average was about, if you took 12 to 15 shots a night and you can control the game that way and you have your imprint on the assist box, you're sharing the basketball, that's when you knew you were doing, a great job. And then guys like Magic would come along and they control the game with 4 shots. Yeah. and you would be like, hey, we're not even talking about you tonight, exactly. Magic. You're in a totally different category. But that's what Westbrook is doing. And not only that, he's also accepted the challenge of becoming a better defender. This is the first time I've ever heard him really talk about becoming an elite defender as opposed to being an elite offensive player. And when you have he and Paul George as 2 elite defenders on your team, you got a chance to beat anybody.
And, wrapping up on Westbrook, he's not getting those 3 or 4 extra layups he got a game because, your shooting percentage looks a hell of a lot better when you're beating everybody and you're getting 4 or 5, 6 layups at the rim. He's not getting those right now. I don't know if he's just doesn't quite have the explosiveness he had or whatever. He's such a freakish athlete, but he's just not getting those shots. And so those always make your shooting percentage look a hell of a lot better.
And do you guys think, though, big picture, this is a team that doesn't shoot the 3 well, although they were terrific in their last game, shot 52% from beyond, made 15. But along with Westbrook and this group, do they shoot it well enough, though, to where they can really put some fear in some of those elite teams in that Western Conference once we get to the postseason?
If the right people are shooting it. If Abrinas can come back and get healthy, he's a good shooter for him. Paul George makes his share of threes, shoots a decent percentage from the 3-point line. I'd like to see them add another shooter. But again, to me, the 3, it's all relative to who's shooting it. If you have 20% shooters shooting a lot of threes, you're going to be a lousy 3-point shooting team. It doesn't take a whole lot of math to figure that out. And sometimes they have the wrong people shooting the threes. If they have the right people shooting the threes, put them in the right position, you got some drive, you got some kick going out, I'd like to see them add another shooter. I really would. I think it just fills out their roster. But again, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. San Antonio has the right people shooting threes. And they don't shoot a bunch of them, but they make a bunch of them. They make a high percentage of what they shoot. I think OKC's got to have a little bit of some of that. That being said, I'd like to see them trade for a shooter if they could.
I agree with Kevin. I do think that at some point in time during this period, they have to seek out a 3-point shooter to add to the roster. But that shooter's got to be able to defend also.
Yes.
He just can't be a guy that's a specialist that knocks down shots. He's got to be able to defend on both ends so they can play him and keep him in the game. And I also think that shot selection is extremely important. And what I'm seeing with OKC right now is their shot selection has become much better. And if they continue to have good shot selection, then they'll be okay.
Okay, and speaking of selection, I'm going to select this moment to give a shout out to my kids. My daughter Naomi and my son Tyson are watching. They're big fans. And also interact with all of us here socially at NBA TV.
Not
myself, Nick Ray Anthony 50, at Isaiah Thomas, and at Kevin McHale. Just try it. You never know. Somebody probably has that account right now.
The problem is it's that actor, and they keep on mistaking me for some 4'11" actor. And I'm like, that is not me. I promise you. I'm 6'11".
All right.
You get mistaken for the actor. I get mistaken for the younger Isaiah
That's right.
in the league.
I always say the real Isaiah Thomas when I talk about you.
That's
I just
the
call
real.
myself the
That's the
older.
real Dame Lillard right there. And
Yeah,
he
it's
might
only
have
one.
a little something to say about how this game goes tonight. Dame Lillard and the Blazers.
Wearing slippers.
They are lurking.
Only one. Those are
Tip with a status update on this relatively light night, 4 games around the association. Let's start here from the bottom and work our way up. DeAndre Ayton out the second half of the home and home with Minnesota. Karl Anthony Towns feasted the other night. We'll see if he can do it again. Jeff Teague is questionable tonight with an illness for Minnesota. Meanwhile, Dennis Smith Jr. is probable from his illness, which we'll talk about in a bit. Meanwhile, De'Aaron Fox will miss his first game of the season tonight. The most improved player candidate is out. So is Nemanja Bjelica. So 2/5 of the starters out for Sacramento. But the big news is Kawhi Leonard won't play tonight after missing the last couple of games. Is he nursing an injury?
And it's just a load management thing still, right? I think he's played about 35, 36 games now, right? After playing 9 a year ago. And it was just a chance to get him some extended rest, but we are definitely sitting him out this back-to-back, and he's definitely going to play Friday in Houston.
Is there any additional injury that's being monitored, or is it just
Nope.
the load?
Just the load.
All right, let's take you around the NBA. Go to Toronto, where the Raptors are hosting the Kings tonight, and Josh Lewenberg covers the Raptors for TSN Sports. Josh, this is a bit head-scratching here with Kawhi. It appears kind of not playing his way ultimately out of the MVP conversation with missing all these games. Is this shocking to you that he's not playing tonight and tomorrow night against the Pacers?
It's surprising. I think probably more surprising than this back-to-back is that he sat out on Saturday against Memphis. That was the only game in 4 days. I mean, listen, this is unusual for a fully healthy player, allegedly, for a healthy 27-year-old player to miss 4 straight games for rest. But let's face it, just about everything about Kawhi's season last year in San Antonio and even this season in Toronto has been unusual. This is a unique situation for Kawhi and the Raptors this year, and the Raptors are managing it that way.
Josh, do you get any sense as to whether this is Kawhi's choice or whether this is coming from within the organization, be it the front office, the medical staff, to protect Kawhi, in essence, to continue recruiting him to sign long-term this summer?
It really seems like a little bit of both, and it's definitely, at least in part, Kawhi's decision. And I only say that because Kyle Lowry was supposed to sit out last week. He was already ruled out in the afternoon, and he forced his way into the lineup. So if Kawhi really wanted to be out there, I think he'd be out there. But it's worth noting that he briefly left last week's double overtime win in Washington, I should say, with left leg tightness. He did come back and finish that game, and then he played a few days later in Boston, a big game. But it wouldn't surprise me, even though you hear Nick Nurse say that he's healthy, it has nothing to do with the injury. It wouldn't surprise me if the Raptors looked at that sort of mini injury scare and said, all right, let's reevaluate things a little bit. Let's not take any chances in late January and maybe give him some extended rest. He'll have 4 games and over a week off before he returns in Houston on Friday.
One other theory to go along with this, separate and independent, I know it's hard to do this from the Kawhi recruitment, is also the Raptors have told us the 1 seed is not important to them because what they do in the playoffs is most important. Is this another example of that?
There are 2 goals that the Raptors are locked in right now over the next 6 months, and pretty much only 2 goals that they are locked in on, and that's making it to the finals and competing for a championship, and then convincing Kawhi to stay. So I do think these rest nights have something to do with both of those things. I mean, obviously, by minimizing the risk here and hopefully for their sake, maximizing the chances of him being 100% in the playoffs, that increases their chances of competing for a championship. But also in terms of keeping him, Bobby Webster talked about this the other day, of course, the Raptors GM. He said that when they first sat down with Kawhi, they asked him, what's important to you? And most people don't know what's important to him because we don't really know Kawhi, but he said, maintaining my health. So for them going out of their way in situations like this to show him, to prove to him that your health is important to us, I think that for them could go a long way in ultimately convincing Kawhi to stay.
Great reporting by Josh Lewenberg from TSN Sports. Raptors without Kawhi again tonight and tomorrow night. Load management as the Raptors host the Kings on League Pass. Josh, thanks for joining us. Moving on to a story that has us scratching our head as well. What's going on in Dallas with Dennis Smith Jr.? Luka Doncic takes a stab at it.
He's a great player, so I told you, I miss him in the court, the way he plays, his defense, his attack. We miss him for sure.
Well, the Dallas Mavericks have played the last 6 without Dennis Smith Jr. They've lost the last 4 of those games. Listen, this is a Dallas team who wants to make a playoff push here. What is your take on the illness that kept Dennis Smith Jr. away and reportedly will have him back potentially tonight, and what Dallas does with him between now and the trade deadline 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, it's really a strange situation. I mean, life comes at you fast. I mean, this time last year, Dallas had an amazing rookie. Dennis Smith Jr. was playing very well. And of course, now they have another amazing rookie, but he's on another level and he's controlling the ball. That's what Dennis Smith Jr. did last year. So I think it's sort of like a conflict between the two players. Not personally, they like each other, but their styles are clashing. And I think Dennis Smith Jr.'s people are probably wondering whether or not he would be better suited on another team, in another situation. Maybe that'll help him next year, because you also have to understand after next year, he'll be contract extension eligible. So, don't discount the money in this either. I think Dennis Jr. wants this to be a comfortable fit, whether that's with the Mavericks or whether that's with another team. And that's up to the Mavericks to decide.
Yeah, Sean, I want to update you on a story that's just coming out here from Tim McMahon of ESPN, who got a quote before tonight's game from Mark Cuban about the reported conflict between Dennis Smith Jr. and the head coach. Mark Cuban says, quote, "He just wants his guys to come back and go to work. Look, if you just watch a game, it's rare when there's a game when a player is not mad at someone on the coaching staff." He says, Mark Cuban does, it's just part of the game. So not totally squashing that there may be something to the rift that's been reported between Dennis Smith Jr. and Rick Carlisle.
Yeah, it could be, because Rick Carlisle's a no-nonsense coach. You saw him with Rajon Rondo, a couple years ago. You saw that little tip they got into. Carlisle also has a lot of power within the Mavericks organization, so he's not a coach that's, under any kind of stress. The organization has full confidence in him, but again, you're talking about a young player who's just looking to find his way, and a stubborn old coach.
All right, Sean Powell joining us from the NBA.com West Coast Bureau tonight. We'll see 2 weeks from Thursday, the NBA trade deadline. Appreciate you joining us here, Sean. Check his work out on NBA.com. We're getting you ready for players only. Lillard and the Blazers looking for a 4th straight win. They've won 7 of 9 coming in. We'll wrap things up strong by giving you a little say what and taking you courtside next.